Last time, we redesigned the base 3 guns and added 3 new weapons to the roster. And then I asked you folks what you thought the base abilities should be for the base 3 guns. And after going through those comments, we did decide what we wanted to do with those guns, but we won't be talking about that in this video. In this video, we'll be talking about characters, both NPC and player, and the addition of this drone. But first, this video is sponsored by Quali. They're a leading mobile game publisher and developer, and they've recently passed 1 billion downloads. With over 45 hit games on Android and iOS, they're expanding into hybrid casual mobile games, and are looking to fund and publish your game. They have a world-leading marketing team, monetization and data science experts to make your game profitable. They're friendly and fast, so you can enjoy the process as well as reach global success. If you want to find out more, click the link in the description or scan the QR code to sign up to Quali's publishing portal and send Quali the App Store link to your hybrid casual mobile game. The folks over there at Quali were really great with me, even though I had my little squirrel moments and didn't reply in like weeks. So if you're interested, go check them out using the link below. Anyhow, drone character. This was Artman Oil trying to push a new mechanic again, and me saying no. A number of people in the comments have commented about how companions in the game would be a really cool addition, like in The Binding of Isaac, where you can get companions that boost your abilities or fire their own bullets or any number of things. But after they'd drawn some concepts for the idea, I eventually said yes to this one drone. So this character's name is Vivern, or Viv for short. And they're gonna follow you around the dungeon, and the idea is to have your abilities come from them instead of the characters themselves. That way the drone will be a part of the combat and not just be like a tag-along. Nobody wants, "Hey, listen! Hey, listen!" So the designs were drawn out, and we'd picked one, and then Artman Oil created it for the game. And then I went away for a little while to go do something, and came back and found this. I was expecting some kind of little squash and stretch animation, and the bullet would fly out of them, and that's it. Not a whole freaking mechanical gear system that turns into like a railgun that fires off the bullet. Anyhow, it does look really cool, but it meant that I had a lot more work to do to make it work properly in-game. Not the basic stuff like making the bullet fire from the gun instead of from the player, but lining up where the gun rotates to where Viv is when the animation finishes is kinda tricky, because otherwise they just snap in place and that doesn't look right. So to solve that, I actually took the art and made my own animation where Viv turns into a little ball after firing the bullet. And that made it easier to make the ball centered on the player, because whatever angle the ball ends at will still look right when it snaps to the original position. And we were going to do this for every single character ability, but then I ran into something that would require a lot of work to change. And that was the explosion that Artman Oil had drawn. It was beautiful, it was wonderful, it was animated and big and just looked like it would rattle the screen. But it was so big that when it collided with the wall, it would clip over through the wall and start interacting with other parts of the scene, which looked really janky and odd. And I know how to fix this, but I didn't know if I had the strength to do it. So I did what any reasonable person would do in that situation, and I added it to my to-do list and never thought about it again. And the next thing on my list that didn't include the big explosion thing was the hub world. Art had fully finished it, and now it was my job to bring it to life. So the first thing that I did was break up all of the images into individual objects, and then place them over where they were in the game. And with that, I could use a point on the object to determine its Z order, which allows me to do this, which just gives the game that bit of depth that it needs. And then collision masks, which were tedious as hell, but worth it because now you can like walk around and interact with things, and they feel like actual things in the game as opposed to just images. Now they're physical things that you can run into and that you have to walk around. Then I focused on something that nobody cared about, but I did. So the vignette in the old game was just layered on the screen just like in the rooms in the dungeon, but in this version with the camera moving around and the idea of it being more of an outside space, I wasn't sure if the vignette made sense or not, but I tested a bunch of different versions. I tried black, and then green, and then teal, and then different opacities, and then I posted that on Twitter and the YouTube community tab, and they all look the exact same to them, which means that all of the time I spent on that didn't matter to anybody other than me. And so the hub world was all done and set up, but we needed to add the characters. And in the last video I showed that we planned on making these little puffball characters, and they really did come out adorable. Props to our man Oil for making these. They're just really cute. And the alternate animations that they added, just chef's kiss. So after the gunsmith got added, we added in the animation for the shopkeeper and the leaderboard keeper, who before was this hippie kind of nerdy character with scrolls in their backpack, and now for some reason they're a Canadian stereotype. I don't really know how that happened, but it did. So, check out one of the cutest animations that I've seen in a while. As a Canadian, I approve. And then we talked about all of the characters and redesigning them. So, Gundude is just Gundude. They're the same way they were before, naked with beard and glasses. But Gundudette, the robot, and the devil character all got a makeover. Gundudette's design got changed to this like almost motorcycle attire look, and their idle animation includes a glitch effect. So the teleporting is now kind of like glitching. The robot got probably the most drastic change because we tried a bunch of different designs for the robot, different looks and colors and setups, but we eventually just decided we couldn't pick something we liked. So we decided to go with something that fits the world. And since stone plus magical energy is kind of the vibe that we're going with now with all the art, we decided to make a magic companion cube with legs. And I think it's as adorable as the robot was. Unfortunately though, we didn't bring the ping pong animation to the new character. It just didn't make any sense. And then the devil character went through a few different redesigns, but what I wanted for them was for them to be a chaotic element. So in the original version, they would put down fire and the fire would kind of spread randomly out throughout the level, and it would do a massive amount of damage if it worked out properly. But if one of the enemies managed to walk over the original fire that you placed on the ground, they would get hit once and then nothing else would happen. So it was kind of random and chaotic to use. So we came up with a new mechanic where they would roll a dice, and based on the number that came up on the dice, they would get a different result. Which meant for the redesign, we kind of went with a mobster-esque looking kind of suit and a big old grin. And then the first thing that I did was get the characters working in the hub world, making it so that you could select the character and they would show up as your playable character, walking around and all of those things. But then I had to do something that I feel like I could have done better, but I didn't, so here we are. Each gun has 4 different frames with the skin color or hands of the character that's using it. So, this redesign with all of the characters being a different size and shape meant that every gun needed to have different points on them for each version of the gun with the different hands, which doesn't sound like a lot, but like, look at this. Just look. Each gun, different points, and each one had to be tested with the character to make sure it made sense with the different heights, and it just took a long time, okay? I can't stress how much time this took. In the old version, they were all the exact same size, so I didn't have to do this. But in this new version, I had to do this with every single character. Just tweak, playtest, tweak, playtest, tweak, playtest, tweak, playtest, squirrel. So this is where I got bored of that, and instead decided to go off and make some new mechanic, because that's how my brain works. And this new mechanic was the camera in the hub world, or overworld. Where the camera was constantly following you around, it kind of felt weird and the pixels were kind of blurry because it was never sitting in one place long enough for you to appreciate the pixels. It was always like a half pixel thing going on. So what I decided to do was set up staging. I put points into the game where when you were closest to that point, the camera would sway over to that point to kind of focus on whatever building you're looking at. And of course this took tweaking, but this moment right here is what made the whole thing worth it. When you walk up to the gate and the camera moves up and focuses directly on the gate, it's just a cool, like, ominous moment. And I'm really happy that it's in the game. It's just a really nice touch. And then, Artman Oil got into a kick where they made all of Vivern's ability animations to go along with the characters. So, that was my next task, setting up the animations with the characters and redesigning these abilities to have a little more flair and juice. Now, before I move on to the playable character abilities, I want to ask you a favor. Can you comment down below and tell me what you think of the Binding of Isaac conga line of companions versus the idea that we're going with, which is a single companion that supports you the whole way through? Do you prefer the giant conga line, or is a single focused character that is a character rather than a mechanic, or both, something that you're more interested in? Let me know in the comments below. So, player abilities. With Gundudette, the animation was a snap animation. So what I did was set it up so that when you right click in an area in the room, time freezes for a second, the snap happens, your character goes to the new location, and then you have just enough time to fire off one bullet before time speeds up again. So you get this momentary bullet time effect so that you have a second to process where you are, take your first shot, and then move out of the way of danger. And then it was a matter of going through the game and playtesting it to tweak the timing to get it just right so that it doesn't impact the speed of gameplay, but gives you that brief moment of pause when you move to a new location. And then for Stony, it was just to set up the ability to work the way it did before, but have Viv's animation play in sync with the animation turning on. And I added some animations and sound effects to make the turning on of the shield just a little more noticeable. And on the tail end, before the shield would just stop. So now it flickers on and off, and then particles and a sound effect happen when the shield stops. So then you know the shield has stopped, and you have a better idea of when to get out of danger. And then finally, it was the demon or devil, or we don't really have a defined definition for them yet, but that character. And the animation for this one is really cool, but it did mean I had to set it up so that there were 3 different outcomes with 3 different sound effects and all that kind of stuff. And for this one, just like Gundudette, there's a time slow, so you can see the animation that happens, and the first of 3 different results is the fail. So Viv hits the block, and a thumbs down pops up, accompanied with this fail sound. And this is what I was hoping for the chaotic character. 2 out of 3 of the results are going to be good and have a big impact, whereas one of those results just doesn't do anything and it could just leave you screwed. But then the second ability is health. So when Viv hits the block, a heart pops up and a bunch of health spawns around the player, still in slow-mo, so you can appreciate the health getting sucked towards the player. And this will really help out in a pinch, but it also means that you might not want to use your ability if you're on full health. And then the third outcome is a jackpot, which is going to be a big bomb. Admittedly, this is where I stopped because I ran out of time, but this is what it looks like. A huge thank you to my patrons. Because of them, my coffee cup is full. And as always, the links to the places that I hang out are down below, and if you decide to click on one, then I will see you there.